Hello, everyone. This is Professor Hamamoto. I'm happy to see you. Are you happy to see me? Don't answer that. Well, it's January 5th, year 2023. It's 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, just so you know where you're at. I'm here in the beautiful city of Sacramento, California, the state capital of the state of California. And I say that with great pride because one of the principal characters in today's talk hails from Sacramento. At least that's where his base of operations was until he went upscale and moved south to the Gold Coast of Southern California, Newport Beach in specific. So nothing ever happens around here. Well, I shouldn't say that. We recently we hit the news with the Golden State Killer. He's one of the that story's not over. I'm still reading. There's about three or four books on it, but I don't think that story is fully told. But that's in my neighborhood, so I take that back. Sacramento's full of excitement, even though it's considered to be an unfashionable place to live. But that's okay with me because there's fewer trendies, fewer posers around, and it just leaves more space for me in my dark moods. And speaking of dark moods, it's been very rainy and wet lately. I walked down to the tributary of one of the Sacramento River, one of the major rivers in the state of California, and the water was real high. I live in sort of a delta region, so I like to keep checking out the water problems. It's either drought or it's the threat of being inundated by a deluge. So anyway, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Today's talk is titled "Crybabies, Underachievers, and the College Admissions PsyOp." I don't know if I'll be able to get to this, but the crybabies refer to people like Jordan Peterson. Remember him? Well, he's until Whitney Webb hit the blogosphere or the bot sphere rather. He was dominating the headlines, and I think he still gets a lot of play. And I came across, and I congratulate the person who put this together on YouTube. There's some creativity there. Someone took the initiative to make a compilation film of Jordan Peterson crying, right? And I mention him because this is really, if you're in the humanities and the arts area or psychology, which he purports to be in, well, not purports, he's a clinical psychologist, right? According to his training, in addition to being a pop guru. But someone took the initiative to compile all these segments of him crying. So it's one giant pity party in the so-called soft side of the university. And on the hard side, they're just involved with human extermination technology, right? According to Yuval Harari, he's just one of the more glamorous names that are being flouted about recently. We're talking about entire systems, so let's not get hung up on personality. So you're caught between a rock and a hard place. You got crybabies on one hand. You have these hard-headed scientists who want to destroy the world. Right? I'm not exaggerating. You've heard about Edward Teller and J. Robert Oppenheimer. They're University of California products. Teller himself was I came much later than him, but he was at UC Davis. He left there. He came to Davis because he was sort of petulant anathema at Berkeley, where Oppenheimer ruled the roost there. And of course, he got thrown under the bus as well because he supposedly was involved with the Communist Party politics. I don't know if he was or not. It's really secondary. But I'm just telling you these instructive tales is because all these guys get rolled up eventually, right? And that should give us some sense of hope, because I know there's a lot of frustration out there. Should give us some sense of hope about the justice that we will realize with the miscreants in the biomedical field who are housed in the university for private profit purposes. it gives us some hope that those people will be brought to justice. Even the ones who are the limited hangouts, like Dr. Robert Malone, who I think was also at UC Davis. It's one of those underrated campuses, right? If it's a campus that has a national primate lab, I think that's a really good sign that there's a lot going on there. And they're usually these ag schools out what used to be a remote area, right? So in case there's an outbreak, only the immediate residents are going to die. But now we're in a major urban area here. Okay, whatever it is, primates, rats, doesn't matter. Human beings, we're all experimental test subjects. So let me move into the heart of the matter here. It's that time of year again. That's why I'm putting this talk together and presenting it to you. It's the season of the anxious high school senior. Yes, the high school seniors are busily at work putting the finishing touches on their college and university applications. Some of the more ambitious ones have already got them put together, and then they're going to wait, I think, until I think it starts to early decisions around March, April. Certainly by April, I think most of the young people who have applied for college and university get the good news or the bad news. And I'm of a different generation. Okay, I grew up in segregation, as you're probably tired of hearing by now, and I don't say that just so you'll pity me, because I've done all right for myself. I come from I have to struggle, but that's cool. I don't need any sort of sympathy. I just tell you this so you have an understanding of why I'm such a hard ass and I have a bad attitude, right? Because you might assume that I'm one of these bourgeois Asians that you see walking around now, driving giant sports cars, right? Or their dad was a technologist, so they can get a job, at Bard College and write for the New Yorker, or have an endowed chair. Those people came, are later. That's why I'm telling you this. And I'm also mentioning this is because I do have a certain class resentment against people who can buy their way into situations. And this is a case in point. Does that surprise me? No. I'm a big boy. I understand criminality. I understand how people obtain access, buying their way, extorting, blackmail, whatever it is. I'm a big boy. You should be a big boy too, right? This is not about candy ass, weepy pity party time, okay? And first and last time I mentioned today, but some of the people just can't handle it, right? The only negative comment I had about ranking on candy asses was someone who purported to be a follower of mine. I don't have any followers. Hopefully, I don't. They've watched my material, and she was the only one saying, "Oh, don't waste your time doing that." But she was the only one responding. The rest of the people don't bother because they know that tourists are not welcome here. All right, except if you're a newbie and you have someone that you know and love who was applying for college, have them watch this. Okay, have them watch. I think those are the type of people that I want to have as my audience. All right. And I know I don't have the control over it, but I also don't have to put up with a bunch of candy asses who come through here and say, "Oh yeah, Jew haters like, oh Rabbi Khan, yeah, he's Jewish, so he'll never be a Christian," or they're hating on Leo Zagami, and I don't mind you hating on me, but just be respectful to my guests. And I know you're hiding behind anonymity and all that, but the world doesn't work that way. It's at a certain point you have to come out of hiding and represent yourself in 3 dimensions. That's why, by the way, I'm mentioning this because college admissions, university attendance, and that's really the first step. And when you have to put yourself out there on the line, and you can no longer hide yourself behind a Game Boy. I know that's an archaic reference. I do that purposely sometimes, so don't call me lame. All right, you have to come out behind your joystick, your little video game, your little LARP, and your little avatar, and you have to represent yourself to the larger world. We're still a 3-dimensional world. We haven't got full avatar yet. I know you want it. I know Yuval Harari and all you other crackpots would like to see that in place, but we're not there yet. And if we have anything to say about it, and we do, we're not going to go there. All right. So it's anxiety time, and the parents are anxious. The younger brother and sister, and maybe you have an older brother and sister in university, and there's a lot riding on this. I mean, and I'm just here to tell you that even if you get in, it doesn't guarantee jack squat. Okay, let's put it in perspective by being more specific here. I gave a talk earlier. It was about Kushner Incorporated. It was by about Ivanka and Jared Kushner, and it was a review of this book called Kushner Incorporated. Okay, check this out. Jared Kushner got into Yale. Okay, he is not a mental giant, but his dad is Charlie Kushner. He's got a lot of dough. He bought his way in. Okay, I'm a big boy. You're a big boy, right? We are not candy asses. We understand how it works. Okay. So let's move on. But for the rest of it, this is where the resentment comes in. But for the majority of the young people who are applying, they're not candy asses. They're just naive. They don't have enough world experience, and their parents are too nice to tell Junior that, hey, I'm sorry, but this is how the world really works. You don't like to raise your kids by exposing them to that kind of harsh reality. They're going to find out enough. So those are the people that on whose behalf I am giving this talk there. The 17-year-old, maybe 18-year-old kid who's, checking the email every 5 minutes to see if she gets into, the dream school to the University of Spoiled Children, right, known as USC. They don't know that. All you have to do is donate a bunch of money and you're going to get in, right? And some of these kids' parents do have that money, but they don't know the system enough to be able to game it, right? And by the way, I'm not offering any consultation services here, like this guy who ran the scam here, right? We'll talk about him in a moment. And he's not the only one, by the way. I know parents who pay, these are upper middle class parents who have this anxiety. Usually it's the parents that are freak out about this more than and the kids. And then the kids get all, oh, my life's going to be ruined. By 18, I'm not going to be able to get married. No one will find me desirable. I won't get to be one of those cool dance reception videos. And if we have time, I'll show you what I mean by that. So let me just give you a feel for the and these are candid shots from what I can tell, even though part of this documentary is of questionable veracity. It comes from FBI eavesdropping, or I should say wiretapping is more like it, of this so-called FBI Operation Varsity Blues. That's their name of it, right? And it's part law enforcement. Okay, I can, go along with that, DOJ. But it's also part PsyOp, because it's also normalizing the use of wiretaps for what I would view a relatively minor crime compared to the other types of routine systemic crimes that are going on at the university. And that's the other layer that I'm trying to bring in here so far as PsyOp's concerned, right? If they can get us all riled up about how Lori Loughlin and Massimo Giannulli gamed the system and got their less than stellar academically accomplished children into the University of Spoiled Children by paying them off, if they can distract us with that and not having us focus on gain of function research at UC Davis, then that's part of the PsyOp. All right. And the timing is not accidental. This scandal, supposed admission scandal, ooh, right? Like it's never, like we were oblivious to that, right? How do you think the Bush children got into Yale and Harvard and all that? George W. Bush he doesn't have a law degree, unlike most of those jerkwads. He only has an MBA from Harvard, but he was just known as some smart ass guy that would sit in the back of the classroom and spit sunflower seeds on the floor. This is at Harvard, right? So anyway, you got Cushing. You don't really need to have much up here in order to get in these institutions. So don't stress out over that. And despite the fact that you have some of these people buying their way in, there's still room for you, right? And you don't even have to go to college and university if you really think about it. I mean, so I know that's not much of a reassurance. You won't really realize this until after you go through the process and you're like, oh my gosh, it really wasn't all that it cracked up to be. Of course, it brings you certain opportunities to come in contact with people, right? Who have the right pull, but that's going to be a very, very small minority. And look at my earlier talk on historically Black colleges and universities and the secret societies, otherwise known as the Black fraternities and sororities. There is some research there, and more needs to be done, but it's not going to come out of the academic world because most of the African American people who are in the academic profession are read into these very same Black secret societies, so they're not going to be really revealing the source of their power and how they got over in the larger society, unless they, go off the reservation. Is that an ethnic slur? Okay, maybe I'd say unless they leave the plantation. It's rare, right? There are not very many me's around who will truthfully look at the reality of their own world and remain critical of it, right? I thought that was the gig. Silly me. All right, so here's how your I would say even average, the typical boy and girl, are they men and women by now, right? I got to use the right pronoun, otherwise I'm going to melt into tears like Jordan Peterson. Here's how the typical teenager, let's say, anticipates the fateful decision on whether they're admitted to the college, the university of their choice. Let's check it out. Just a minute or so. I'm not going to bore you with it. Oh, I'm sorry. That comes later. Here we go.
I'm about to check my USC decision, but I know it'll be okay if I don't, and I just saw a lot of people got rejected, so...
Alright, I'm already on the page. It says status update.
New update.
What's it? Hey, status update. Sorry.
This is my ultimate dream school. I'm getting rejected. I already know.
I just clicked it. Oh my god.
Wait, I got accepted!
This is some crazy stuff. Let's talk about this.
There's been a firestorm of news coverage on a sort of college admissions scandal.
Explosive new details about the largest college admissions scam prosecuted by the Department of Justice ever.
All of our friends are only talking about one thing, and it's this story. It's hit like a real nerve.
Real estate executives, a lawyer, doctor, and a litany of CEOs, all facing criminal charges.
An FBI investigation called Operation Varsity Blues.
Operation Varsity Blues.
Operation Varsity Blues.
How are you after the college scandal?
I'm sorry?
Rick Singer designed this scam and collected tens of millions of dollars from it.
Parents paid him top dollar to pass their kids off as star athletes.
Rick Singer.
Rick Singer.
Rick Singer.
Rick Singer.
Rick Singer. And I mentioned he's the pride of Sacramento. And there's another celebrity that I'm proud of. Her name is Greta Gerwig. She's the director who was born and raised in Sacramento. I recommend this film. It's called Lady Bird. And it features, I didn't realize that she was Irish actor. She was born in the U.S., but her family returned to Ireland, Dublin specifically, when she was young. And because her acting, she's like an American teenager from Sacramento. This came out in 2017. And I mention this is because one of the narrative points here is she's a high school senior and she's trying to get out of Sacramento because it's a really unglamorous place to live. It's Hollywood for ugly people, right? This is the state capital. And there's nothing here about high-level escorts and Gavin Newsom. That's about it. And there's a little small restaurant scene that's developing downtown J Street, which I live very far away from. Like I say, I avoid all the cool areas of my living space, right? So anyway, she's trying to get out of Sacramento, and her dream is to get into Columbia. That's Columbia University. And there's a funny scene in there where her mother says, because in spite of living in I think it's the fabulous 40s area in Sacramento, it's more like the upper middle class. Her parents are, teachers or something. They're professionals, but they're low paid professionals, and they don't have any money to send her to Columbia. That she wants to do that because she wants to be around all the art and all the thinkers and all the heavyweight intellectuals, in the English department and comparative literature and German and religious studies, if they're in the humanities and history, or these name, history professors, whoever it might be. And then the mother, it's a really good movie. It's very well acted. It's part of this genre, by the way. It's called mumblecore, as in blah, 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 blah. I had a colleague once she's at NYU now, but I'm saying that like, how was she able to? She's mumbling, blah, 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 or she was muttering, right? This is someone at a research one institution, right? Again, university level. So her mother says, "This is mumblecore. These are low budget films of personal stories." One of the funniest lines was, "You don't have to go to Columbia. Me and your father can't afford it. UC Davis is perfectly acceptable." Because the Sacramento and Davis is right down the causeway on I-80. So that was funny. And one of the opening lines, I'm sorry for belaboring this point, but I want to promote Sacramento as a cultural mecca that's undiscovered. But please don't move here, whatever you do. Stay in San Francisco, all right, or LA, but do not come to Sacramento. But the Greta, or this woman here, Sarah, here's her name. I forgot her nickname. She gave herself the name Ladybird. She asks her mother, "Do I look like I'm from Sacramento?" Okay, so I'm just telling you because this is what part of the teen psychology that makes this a make or break life and death situation for an average 18, 17-year-old girl or boy or male and female, or I don't know if they do gender pronouns in high school, probably, because the teaching professions is dominated. It's been bought out by the United Nations and the World Economic Forum and NATO. And that's why it's a PsyOp, right? These young people, if they only knew what they were getting into, right? This indoctrination, they have to conform to this really oppressive. It's not even science. Even the science is ideologically charged. It's no longer science. It's just pure ideology, in the worst sense of the word, right? So that's another layer of meaning that I'm trying to bring to this discussion here, so far as PsyOps are concerned. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the players here, and I'm going to focus on just a couple of them. They happen to be married to each other because they're celebs, and celebrities, that's what they sign up for, right? And if you want to find out the more details on it, I'll let you do that yourself. In fact, I've already pre-posted some material on the Patreon. Sign up for my Patreon, because your adult child or your grandchildren who are in college can write a paper on the basis of this talk and some of the documents that I posted on Patreon. And the professor or the teaching assistant is going to love it. It's about college admissions. They're going to go, "Oh, I'm going to read this one for a change, and I'm going to make some comment. And this person's getting an A." So I'm trying to bring extra value to this talk as well, not just me expressing my grievances and my resentment against higher education, right? I want you to get something out of it. And I'm still an ardent believer and supporter of higher education. It has to be radically reformed. I won't go into specifics on how that can be done, and it can be done, but it starts with this type of inference, this type of critique, and it starts with the parents starting to push their weight forward, just not putting up some of the nonsense that they're being subjected to. You do have a role, a very important role, probably a larger role than your own student, to play in the revolution that I'm foreseeing at the higher education level, all the way to the elite schools. It's not just the community college or the state universities, but also the elite schools are going to have to change. They're going to have to, otherwise they won't have anybody to boss around or extract money. We'll all be gone. right? For their own self-preservation, they're going to have to start backing off on a lot of the ideological hijinks they've been manufacturing at the university with public funding, and then feeding it back to us to further enslave us. And we're supposed to enjoy it, right? So let's take a deeper look at some of the players here. This is Massimo Giannulli, and you might not, you might have wore his clothes. It was 20 years. It's really dated stuff. I thought it was a bunch of garbage back then, made by Chinese slave labor. And he became this sort of fashion. I think he's from Orange County too. This makes it, interesting to me, right? Since I know that area well, that whole milieu and the beach culture, supposedly. So it became cool. I could never understand the basis of it, and how his business model was even sustainable as a model of enterprise. But then if you were reading Kirby Summers' Substacks or Twitters or books or PDFs, or if you've been following news in general, one word, Les Wexner, right? Wasn't he in the rag trade too? Okay, so now we understand how these fast fashion, there's fast food, right? There's also fast fashion. Now we understand how fast fashion works in the larger system of criminality, right? That's not the topic of today's talk, but I'm just trying to put Massimo, right? That he had the little, it looked like graffiti type script on his hoodies or whatever he was marketing out there. And he was able to parlay that into a glamorous lifestyle, as we'll watch in a moment, which is fine and dandy. If they have the money, if they're not doing it on my money or your money in public funds, and if it's not exploitative of large numbers of laborers who are making his garbage in sweatshops, then cool, right? Not a problem for me. So here he is, and here's his wife. Lori Loughlin. Let me finish that thought up. For those of you who don't watch TV, then I'm not blaming you. You might not know what Full House is, right? I started thinking about this. She was in that Full House sitcom, because remember, I'm the sitcom maven. I wrote the first and the best academic book on situation comedies. I did this talk a couple of weeks ago, so I know what I'm looking at. I can suss what the agenda is. My argument a couple of weeks ago was that there would have been no Barack Obama, there would have been no Kamala Harris, unless there had been, it was preceded in the 1970s Black situation comedies, right? From Sanford and Son, That's My Mama. There's a whole slate of them. Most of them were directed by Norman Lear, who was on orders to create an image of a single family headed by a mama, right? Pathological, but safe and funny welfare family, right? It's implied. Right? So I know what I'm talking about here. And Full House was creepy. You had all these grown men living in one house, Full House, and they had Olsen twin. I mean, it was presented as one child, but it was actually two who took turns being the little baby, right? And she was the only woman in the house. I said, something's wrong here. Something's really creepy. And more recently, we're hearing stories about minor attracted adults. Is that what the new euphemism is? There's another new euphemism. It's called non-offending pedophiles, right? That's going to be okay. That's being normalized in an academic setting. If you're taking women and gender studies, sociology, anthropology, or history, or one of those areas that's queer dominated, I'm not saying that they're queer or homosexual, but queer theory is really that's what they call it. Queer is the norm, which is also pedophile theory. That's what they're going to learn. The non-offending pedophilia is okay. So they're parsing all these different pathologies and making them acceptable. And their end game is to institutionalize them, right? So that's Full House. That's a sitcom. Someone's going to go back and look at those shows again, and they're going to combine them with all of this smut that comes out about these celebrities. Sooner or later, it all comes out. Right? You cannot repress it. And there's going to be some incredible expose about Full House and Fuller House. Start with the producer of the show. All right, that's all I have time to really talk about at this point. But there's many different points of attack here when putting the university entertainment complex on notice here. So here we go. Lori Loughlin and Massimo Giannulli.
Hearing from a former client of Rick Singer, the one-time Sacramento-based college counselor who has now pleaded guilty to masterminding a $25 million college bribery scam.
To be suddenly a cheater to the stars is quite a flip.
20 years ago, her family hired Rick Singer to help her with her college applications. Now, she says she...
This is my local affiliate television station, by the way. It's a CBS affiliate. And to the right on the screen, you see the Golden Bridge, or that's across the Sacramento. I live downstream from that area. And Sacramento really does look like that. It's a lovely little town, but please don't move here because there's enough perverts up here, and they're working the capital area. The lobbyists, the escorts, and the elective officials. So you don't want to look too closely into that. This is, my neck of the woods, of course. Let's take a look at Massimo. He's a brand, and his wife, his lovey, Lori Loughlin.
Fashion mogul Massimo Giannulli and Fuller House actress Lori Loughlin are a recently disgraced SoCal power couple with so much money, they blew $500,000 cheating to get a daughter into college who didn't even want to be there.
I don't really care about school, as you guys all know.
Whether you love them, hate them, forgive them, or forgot all about them, here's a peek inside the insanely glamorous life of Loughlin, Giannulli, and their daughters, Bella and Olivia Jade. If you thought Giannulli's name sounded familiar, you probably shopped at Target on the reg between 2000 and 2017. That's because Target carried Giannulli's clothing line Massimo during that time. That licensing deal helped make the brand, which Massimo started with $100,000 of his father's money, a ubiquitous and profitable fast fashion staple for years. According to Celebrity Net Worth, Massimo is worth a whopping $80 million. But Giannulli isn't the only member of the family with a seven-figure bank account. Loughlin is worth $20 million on her own. The actress, who is best known for her role as Aunt Becky on Full House and Fuller House, has worked consistently on a variety of below-radar projects through the decades, keeping her wallet fat. That money came in handy because as of the making of this video, both Loughlin and Giannulli are out on a $1 million bond each.
I don't want Aunt Becky to end. I don't want her to end.
If you were rich and had to post a cool mill to ensure you didn't have to...
Somehow Aunt Becky always frightened me. She had kind of one of those kind of mean faces that tried to look nice and innocuous, but there was something unsettling about her under expression. That's what I call it, right? You know about Duper's Delight, and you know about micro expression. She has this micro expression where she's looking like Aunt Becky, but there's something malevolent in there. But that's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just hypersensitive to this type of PsyOp. So there's some mention here about her going to prison. She was in jail for 2 months. It was probably like a Dinesh D'Souza type, I did some PT, some prison time. No, you didn't. You were it was like living in a hotel or something, and you pay for your own lodging and then let you out after 2 months, and it goes on your record, and you'll just pay off the next president. It could be Orange Man, it could be Joe, whoever, and you get your felony taken off the books, right? It's a presidential pardon. Routine stuff. And man, they got a lot of, Massimo Giannulli made bank. He made bank by just selling a bunch of crap at Target made by Chinese slave labor. That stuff where you wash it like 2 or 3 times, it starts falling apart on your body. So, I don't know. But we now know a lot about Les Wexner and about the rag trade and how that articulates with entertainment and the rest of the distraction industry. Okay. So this is what your average, you saw the first clip there, how the average teenager is responding to these sitcoms that they grew up and loved. What a betrayal to have Aunt Becky take your place in college. That's unforgivable. But it's okay if you have these miscreants who are wearing lab jackets who are busy finding out how to destroy the human race and to rewire the human genome, or as Yuval Harari says, how we can hack the human consciousness, hack the human brain. Right? That's okay. But Aunt Becky, please, please cough up the $250,000 fine that was assessed to you. I don't know what I think it was around $250. And then I think Massimo Giannulli did some more time. I don't know why he got more than Aunt Becky, but he was at some kind of celebrity prison as well. He shaved his head before going in, I guess, to show penitence for his massive crime against humanity. So these poor 18-year-olds, they think that if I don't get into USC, no one will want me. I won't be able to get married. I won't be desirable. I won't be able to get into the profession I want. And by the way, it's not really happening for a lot of people who do go to the marquee schools, right? Because the larger macro economy is dying, right? And it's not dying because of some sort of natural problem, not because of sunspots or because of flooding or global warming. It's done because the NATO, United Nations, US military Pentagon economic model of neo-serfdom is at its terminal point, and they're in danger of eating up its own seed crop. And I think that robotics and AI is going to be the replacement strategy for that, right? So they're not going to marry anybody. They're not going to be able to have a wedding reception like you're about to see. And I assembled this video just for you here on YouTube, the candy asses who say I'm just too mean and I'm wasting too much time with candy ass people, because candy ass people are really ruining our life. Right. And I include the Karens, right? The face mask Nazis, the social distant Nazi. You're still around. I ran into one at the supermarket last week. And she really was a Nazi. She said she was from Germany, because I said, what are you, Ukrainian or what? Get out of my fucking face. This is at Nugget here in Sacramento. And she says, no, and she was insulted, of course, being compared to a Slav, right? Because they're subhuman in their mind. She says, no, I am German. I said, oh, yeah, okay. I said, man, you'd really love to slide me in an oven, wouldn't you, bitch? So, by the way, everybody's watching. Everybody in line was watching at Nugget. All right. So this is for you people who are candy asses and think I should really calm down. I'm stressing, oh, yeah. By the way, if you have some mental health professional saying, are you having problems? They pretend they're caring for. Are you stressing? Are you undergoing some crisis right now? Right? It might be someone at work. It might be the resident psychologist at the university. And by the way, they're doing more hiring in that area than they're doing in the academics person. That person is trying to gaslight you. They don't give a shit about your mental health or your physical health. They just care about ratting you out. All right? But anyway, for the candy asses, this is for you. All you have to do is go along with the program, and you're going to have the wedding reception of your fondest childhood dreams, just like this. Yes, that's what you're thinking. How long is that marriage going to last? And just so you know that I'm just not a grumpy, embittered, failed academic type, I like to watch these videos on TubeView for hours on end. This is my ASMR exercise. It really warms the cockles of my heart. I don't even know what a cockle is, but it warms my cockles. Let me tell you that. So what are we going to see next? I mean, when's the pole dance going to start happening at these weddings these days, right? I mean, the way things are going, they're probably going to bring out of bed there and they're going to consummate their marriage in front of the whole wedding party. Let me tell you, these freeways are murders. I just flew in. Boy, are my arms tired. That's Shlomo Hamamoto shtick right there. By the way, if you're interested, my Patreon people here, I'm trying to bring 2 or 3 of you in. There's a technology that I could use here to comment. We're going to watch. We're going to for the benefit. It's going to be like a reaction video. Okay, we're you and me, 2 or 3 of us, and I'll let you take the lead. I'll be kibitzing. That's Yiddish, by the way, and I'll be chiming in on occasion. But I want your perceptions because I want to understand this phenomenon where you just can't get married anymore. Because if I ever get married again, I want to be ready. Do I have to start taking the dance lessons now? Right? Or do we, I mean, if you agree to be part of the groom entourage, you better know how to dance. And if you're in part of the bridal entourage, you better know how to do the freak or whatever it is. What are twerking? Whatever. I haven't seen twerking yet at one of these wedding videos, but I'm looking. All right, I'm hoping. Anyway, so that's a future show, right? In fact, I wanted some of you to come in and chime in about this college admission scandal. Maybe you might have a personal story that you want to relate about the frustrations of it, right? I want to hear these stories. I want to do the human intelligence of the world. So that's in the future, and we'll come up with some other interesting culture phenomena. It doesn't have to be always dark and ugly, right? I'm pro wedding. I'm pro a marriage, right? Hopefully between a man and a woman, and definitely not between a adult person and a 10-year-old. Okay, that's where it's heading. So if you're okay with that, we'll analyze these wedding reception document. I like these groom dances. Man, you better be good, and they're very nasty. Whew, man, I'd be embarrassed. Not really. Okay, so you got this going on. Your life's going to be ruined. You won't be able to get married. You're going to be a pariah. You're destined to be a fapper, right? Or an incel, an involuntary celibate like Elliot Rodger, and you're going to be so sexually frustrated, you're going to go and shoot up the nearest sorority house close to your community college, right? Or you're going to start shooting or stabbing people at Idaho State University. This is something recent here. And I mention this because I have been reading a bunch of nonsense articles coming out of women and gender studies and game studies, whatever it is, deviant psychology course, about Elliot Rodger and talking about how it's all due to toxic masculinity and the manosphere and on and on and on. That would be a good topic for our mind meld here. We'll just watch a bunch of clips of these people going on about Elliot Rodger and toxic masculinity. All right. So you got that going. And if you're not grossed out by this incessant ideological pounding away by these officious, self-righteous scholars, most of whom don't write anything. They're kind of like Jordan Peterson. He hasn't written anything, zero of any academic merit. I know, I checked his curriculum vitae out. He wrote a couple of minor articles on alcoholism. Right? Maybe it runs in the family. I don't know. But all of a sudden, he's a guru. So I know he's Canadian, and I'm going to comment on the Canadian academic culture because they think they have a free pass, even though I'm a third generation American. They have a free pass. They're talking about my country. So the shoes on the other foot. I'll talk about Professor Jordan Peterson, the University of Toronto. You sign up, and he retired recently now because he's making such a big name for himself as a professional global guru, right? Represented by a creative arts agency. I don't have representation. I'm sorry. I'm my own technician, the director, the producer, and I'm the talent. And if you want to hire me for birthdays and bar mitzvahs, just email me. I'm my own rep. Okay. So anyway, if you do go to the university and you sign up for psychology, and that's the most widely majored in discipline in that area, not in sciences, but in behavioral science, social science, psychology is huge because it's full of people who don't really know what they want to do, but they want to please mommy and daddy if their name is Lori Lofton and Massimo Giannulli. So yeah, I just majored in psychology. So what they're going to do is get some crybaby, some candy ass named Professor Jordan Peterson. So let's take a look at him. And here I will admit to gloating because I think it's funnier than hell. Here we go. This guy's an academic fraud. He's fake. He's a charlatan. All right. That's all I'm going to say. What need? I mean, how can I add to that? Just check him out. He's a crybaby. He's just a crying bitch.
It isn't painful. Well, I shouldn't do anything then, The most fundamental reality is pain. Yes. Is there anything more fundamental than pain? Love. And I have my tendency to feel a hell of a lot more sorry for a set of confused, isolated, and lonely pubescent girls who have no one to love them enough to help them appreciate who they are. I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice. Really? If you're in pain, love and truth, that's what you got. And then I do for one overprivileged and unfortunately confused narcissistic Hollywood star.
It's making you emotional, talk about it.
Well, God, You have no idea how many people that's killing. We're also seeing if we enjoy it, and I'm happy to be here doing something like this with her. It's a real privilege. It goes back to, having children. A close reading of 20th century history indicates, as nothing else can, the horrors that accompany loss of faith in the idea of the individual. You have no idea. I see people everywhere, all over the world. They're so demoralized, especially young people with a conscience, because they've been told since they were little that there's nothing to them but corruption and power. It's like, how the hell do you expect them to react? It is only the individual, after all, who suffers. The group does not suffer. If they're more powerful than pain, maybe they're the most real things. Even in the revelation of their triumph, the initial depth of their despair, so I wouldn't change that. But it's not nothing. It's certainly not just happiness. It's better than happiness, but it's almost unbearable. Well, I think you really want to know what I think? I think it's revenge against God for the crime of being. That's really what I think. It's Cain and Cain and Abel. It's like, oh, Abel's your guy, eh? God, how about if I take him out in the field and beat him to death? How do you feel about that? All my sacrifices went unrewarded. Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's what it is at the bottom of the hell of things. I suppose, too, this has been enhanced by my ill health in recent years, but I always feel that it's a privilege to spend time with my children.
All right, that's enough. You get the idea. Yeah, I shouldn't make fun of people's pain, but he's the one that's capitalizing on it. He's the one that's commodified or quote unquote monetizing his own angst for the consumption of the English speaking audience. It's not me. All right. Someone's said in the notes here that he's got a gig down in Atlanta. They should have hired him when his stock was still high, because this act has worn out. It's kind of drawing. It's kind of like the Ellen DeGeneres show. That's it's run its course. It has a lifespan, and his time is over. This is real fast-paced celebrity culture, and it doesn't really last for long. So whoever, if it's true, I haven't found it out. I thought he retired for good, but apparently they're going to probably try to hire him and use him as sort of a tent pole for this whatever. It's probably a school in professional psychology or social work, something like that, and people are going to learn how to connect with their feelings and their inner self, right? Because we've been so traumatized as a species over the last 3 years. Of course, we're not going to talk about who is doing the traumatizing and why it's happening. All we know is that we're feeling some sort of undefined pain, and we don't know how to deal with it, so we'll just cry about it, wring our hands, and put a circle of caring around ourselves like the Care Bears. Right? So Massimo Giannulli and Lori Loughlin and these other people, these other celebs and non-celebs, this is what you're paying for, right? And regular parents, right? And many of them are immigrants. For them, America, the only way to break into the establishment, which they think is a worthy goal, and as you can tell, I find that questionable, because you're just going to be learning technologies of death, how to administer crises and oversee them, and not really think about the human tolls. That's what happened for the past 2.5 years. These are educated people who helped to execute this, what looks like a human population reduction program, right? We're now seeing this quite clear. These are all highly educated people who came out of the university system. And it's being whitewashed by crybabies like Professor Jordan Peterson. All right. And yeah, I know these clips are taken out of context, but the last 2.5, 3 years of eugenics experimentation in the human population out of these academic types, that's not taken out of context. I'm not going to apologize for that at all. Okay, let me conclude with my recommendation of the year, Sweet Home Sacramento. Don't Cry for Me, Sacramento, right, from Evita. Here's the scene. Now listen to it carefully. There's a mumblecore, so you got to make out the words. And this is where the lead actor, Lady Bird, it's kind of a mother and daughter film. It's a healthy film, I'd say, by the way. The parents are seen as being full 3-dimensional human beings, and it's very well written, very well done. It's an anomaly in today's cinema universe. That's why I'm taking some time to promote this, because we got Rick Singer, who's out of Sacramento, and I want you to know that it's not just Rick Singer and the Golden State Killer and Gavin Newsom that characterizes Sacramento. It's full of majority very decent people, just like the rest of America and the rest of the world. So this film is, I don't hold any stock in Netflix, but it's available on Netflix if you want to check it out. I bought my own copy because I wanted to read all the background information that I could glean from it. All right, so here it is. Listen very carefully. I'll shut my mouth. This is about their discussion, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. they're going back and forth, Mama. They went cross country. They drove to New York from Sacramento to check out colleges, right? Isn't that one of those rituals for kids who want to get into college? They go visit the campuses. So this is the setup for that. They're driving back home to Sacramento.
Do you think I look like I'm from Sacramento?
You are from Sacramento.
You don't have to do that.
Well, it's nice to make things neat and clean. You ready to go home?
Ready.
Her hand moved behind his head and supported it. Her fingers moved gently in his hair. She looked up and across the barn, and her lips came together and smiled mysteriously.
You've been listening to The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. If you...
Our college trip took 21 hours and 5 minutes.
Hey, why don't let's just sit with what we heard.
Are you serious?
Well, we don't have to constantly be entertaining ourselves, do we?
I wish I could live through something.
Aren't you?
Nope. The only exciting thing about 2002 is that it's a palindrome.
Okay, fine. Well, yours is the worst life of all, so you win.
Oh, so now you're mad?
No, it's
because
just you're
I
being
wanted
ridiculous
to
because you
music.
have a great life.
I'm sorry, I'm not perfect.
No one's asking you to be perfect. Just consider it, would you?
I don't even want to go to school in this state anyway. I hate California. I want to go to the East Coast.
Your dad and I will barely be able to afford in-state tuition.
There are loans,
Your brother,
scholarships.
your very smart brother, he can't even find a job.
He and Shelley work. They have
They
jobs.
bag at the grocery store. That is not a career, and they went to Berkeley. Your father's company is laying off people right and left. Did you even know that? No, of course you don't, because you don't think about anybody but yourself. An immaculate heart is already a luxury.
Immaculate fart? You wanted that, not me.
Miguel saw someone knifed in front of him at Sac High. Is that what you want? So you're telling me that you want to see somebody knifed right in front of you?
He barely saw that. I want to go where culture is, like
How
New
in the
York,
world did I raise such a
or at least
snob?
Connecticut or New Hampshire, where writers live in the
Get
woods.
into those schools anyway.
Mom,
You can't even pass your driver's test.
because you wouldn't let me practice
The way
enough.
that you work, or the way that you don't work, you're not even worth state tuition, Christine.
My name is Ladybird.
Well, actually, it's not, and it's ridiculous.
Call me
because your name
Ladybird
is
like
Christine.
you said you would.
You should just go to City College. You know, with your work ethic, just go to City College and then to jail, and then back to City College, and then maybe you'd learn to pull yourself up and not expect everybody to do everything.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son.
My favorite scene. She just opens the door and jumps out of the car. Now, this film is it's talk about acting, talk about directing, talk about it has it all. It's right there. But anyway, the point is that discussion was taking place in tens of thousands of households all over America, where mommy and daddy and mama and of course student were trying to figure out the trajectory of the rest of their life, right? It was so filled with angst here. And it doesn't have a really a sweet and heartwarming ending. I'll let you watch it yourself, but it has all these different elements there. So these people, the Giulianiolo and Lori Loughlin with the Full House, and this guy Rick Singer, they're aberrant, and we don't need to apologize for them. Jordan Peterson, he's an aberration. They're not a bunch of crybaby people around here, and it's a real disturbing sign in our society when someone like that becomes a culture hero, because he's just a crying bitch. He's really feeling sorry for himself, so I'm just not feeling it. Okay, but before we end up, just to give you an idea of some of the empirical realities of what Lady Bird is facing and all the other young people, because to a certain extent they're right about their future. If there's no economic system that's viable, that supports an educated middle class, then truly they are doomed. And here's some sobering information. And this came out in the middle of last year, 2022. And this is surprising to me when I read this, and that's why I wanted to put this talk together. And according to U.S. News Report, according to the information they were able to gather, 662,000 fewer students enrolled in undergraduate program in spring of 2022. That's a lot. They say it's only a drop of 4.7%, but this is a historically unique situation. And I know it has to do with the lockdown of society, and maybe that's part of the PsyOp to get a lot of the people who are going to be useless eaters of the future, who are not going to be able to make the transition into the Great Reset, get them out of college. We've gotten all the money we're going to get out of them through these extortionate tuitions and student loans. And we're going to disinvest from the community colleges and the state universities. And the Harvards, the elite institutions are going to persist. They're going to remain, but they're going to have, even those people are going to have a lot of problems. There's going to be a drop. There's going to be a bust out there. And I know that that's counterintuitive for the people who think they've got it made because they got into Stanford. But that market's going to blow up too, right? Everything's market driven in the society, including your diploma and the value that's being floated there. And if you're not convinced of that, well, just think Bankman-Fried, all right? Think about crypto. Everybody, oh yeah, buy crypto. It's going to be the salvation of our economy, just like your higher education is going to be the guarantee of your future success, right? And again, not to denigrate it, I'm a believer in higher education. I'm just saying that it's being purposely dismantled in certain areas and built up in others. The professoriate is being dismantled, right? Jordan Peterson is a prime example of that, and the mental health component is being built up. They're bringing more so-called mental health MFCC types, masters of counseling and social work into the university to handle people who are undergoing crisis, right? Crisis, which is engineered, ironically enough, at the university. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I know this particular talk has been all over the road here, right here and there, but it provides you, I think, an incisive look, a peek into our future, unless we change the course right away. And again, support me on Patreon. I'll put some of these on. I didn't have time to go through them, but I have pieces like this for you. I'll put them on the Patreon. I'll put them as attachments. And if you have a youngster in college and who's looking, because a new term is starting, new semester and new quarter, they're looking for a research project. This is going to be a fun one for them. It's going to be eye-opener for them. And if they don't get an A on this paper, you get a full refund. Okay. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for putting up with my mean-spirited shtick. All right. Thank you. Bye.